Yes. Perfect.
Um, yes. Today is going to be a relatively short class because we're just kind of introducing what we're going to be doing for the rest of this module. And then next week, we're going to get like into the meat of it, and it's going to be pretty in depth and involved. So we're going to probably go a little slow through this module just because it's probably easier that way to digest all the information and really like make sure you're understanding it before we move on. Because we will be doing, excuse me, we will be doing a lot of anatomy and physiology kind of as well in this module. So we'll go as slow as we need to make sure that you're understanding it and that you feel comfortable moving on. So all right. Welcome to Clinical Herbalism course, Module 4, Unit 1. Today we will be learning all about what is the Materia Medica and why do we want one. So, our learning objectives for this module today will be becoming familiar with what a Materia Medica is, how to study herbs, and the therapeutic terminology that you will need to know as a herbalist to carry you through the rest of your herbalist journey. So, what is the Materia Medica? This is actually the favorite module for me, and it's usually the favorite module for anybody else studying because this is the one where we go really in depth into each body system, how it works, the anatomy and physiology of that body system, how everything connects in that body system to everything else in the body, and just all that fun stuff. It's really interesting to me. Hopefully, it'll be really interesting to you. So, on top of that, then once we go in depth into each body system, then we touch on major herbs that are also important for each one of those body systems. Now, obviously, as we've learned in past modules, herbs work as in the body as a whole. There's not any like one system that they only work on. So when I'm telling you that this herb is important for that body system, what that means is that it typically has an affinity for that body system. You will see better changes if you use that herb for this condition over that one. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to also affect other body systems as well. We will just be highlighting like their main uses, and then we will also highlight like their sub uses and the other stuff that they're also good for, also able to be used for, and all that fun stuff. But it's just maybe not like the main thing you're going to reach for that herb for. So don't get hung up on the fact that that herb is only for that body system because that's not how herbs work. So, a Materia Medica actually refers as well to the knowledge that has been collected over the years regarding medicinal herbs. So, your Materia Medica will be the knowledge that you have gained from this course and then in the subsequent years and everything that you're continuing on your own after we're done together, all the knowledge that you've collected, that you've learned about herbs from sitting with them, communing with them, using them for your own body, using them for clients' bodies, and all of that other stuff. So that'll be yours. You can purchase other people's Materia Medicas. A lot of the herbal knowledge books out there that list, this herb and all the stuff that it's known to be useful for and that the herb can affect in your body would basically be just like someone's published Materia Medica, all the knowledge that they have learned over the years and whatever. So there is a lot of different herbals out there that are great to pick up and expand your knowledge and just keep on hand because realistically, one person is never going to learn every single thing there is about herbal medicine and be able to pass that on. So having your own knowledge and your own Materia Medica and then bringing in other people's Materia Medicas and going through theirs as well is also very useful as that will open up some things that maybe you haven't thought about with that herb yet, you haven't experienced with that herb, and give you new ways to be able to enact using that herb in your practice. So your Materia Medica, like we said, is your book of knowledge of the herbs, your experience with each one, any notes about usage or dosage that you find pertinent, safe usages of each herb, safe dosages, what you've found when you've been communing with the herb, any like out of body experiences you've had with the herb, because some of them are hallucinogenics and that kind of stuff. So it's quite possible that you may take a dose and be like, okay, and it'll feel like you're flying somewhere else, and you'll have that experience. And then you will figure out very quickly that that dose is a little high. And as much as I liked that experience, that's not the experience that most of my clients are coming to me for. And so this dose is a not safe dose, and you would be able to put that into your book. So you will use this again and again. It'll be very well loved in your practice. You will find yourself turning to it frequently, using it a lot. The only like special thing that you need for a Materia Medica is an ability to expand that Materia Medica. You don't want to trap yourself into, I have this pretty little journal and I have one page dedicated to each herb, because eventually down the road, you're going to find something else out about that herb. And if you've used your one page entirely, then and you don't have any way to change add to it, you're going to have a really disjointed way of figuring things out then, because you're going to have this is chamomile on this page, and then 75 page later is more about chamomile, and then 60 pages later is more about chamomile, because you had no way to add material to that herb. So I recommend like a 3-ring binder if you're a person who likes to have it like, you know, like a physical copy, that you can just then add extra pages to. um, if you're into digital stuff, you can do it a digital way, just as long as you can add to each herb, so you don't trap yourself into, you know, I have this one page for this herb, but that's all I ever need to know, because that is not going to happen. And you're going to find down the road that you have made a huge mistake and you're going to have to rewrite everything again or redo it. And that's just going to add a lot of time and energy, take a lot of time and energy out of you that you don't have. So start off on the path that you want to continue on. So in this module, we're going to learn about each herb on a deeper level. We're going to come to understand who it is and how it works in our bodies. So many of these herbs will have the same active constituents as another one, but as we've been learning, this doesn't necessarily mean that they will behave the same way in the body. So in this module, we'll go into detail on the differences of how each herb reacts differently in a person, even though technically it has the exact same constituents of another herb. Each herb is its own being and it reacts in the body in its own way, and we can't expect it to behave just like its neighbor. It'd be like with identical twins, just because they look exactly alike doesn't mean they're the same person. They are literally two separate beings with their own ways of acting and behaving and interacting with others, and should be treated as such. Herbs are the exact same way. All right, so when we go through and study these herbs, for the sake of ease, I have grouped them together in the body systems that they have an affinity for. So the way I have my Materia Medica divided up, and this is, again, individual, so whatever feels right to you, you do. Mine is divided up into the body systems. So if I am looking for a client that is coming to me with lots of like asthma or lung issues or bronchitis, and they're having a really hard time breathing, they're coughing up mucus constantly, obviously the first thing you're thinking is, well, I need a respiratory herb because they're having a lot of respiratory issues. So my Materia Medica is divided up into digestive, respiratory, uh, cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, what's the other one, urinary tract, um, reproductive tract, things like that. So I have it all that way. So if I know I want a respiratory herb, I can just flip immediately to the respiratory section, and then scour through there to determine which one of those herbs would be better. That's one way of doing it. The other way, that main way that I do it, is that I run a person's natal chart and I look through there, and that will give me a lot of answers about which herbs would be better for them, and then I have a better starting point. So then I would go to my respiratory herbs and I would find that herb that has jumped out at me during the natal chart reading as one that I should be looking at. And I can double check and make sure that that's truly one that would be best, and then add that to the formula and go from there. And then if it doesn't work out well, or it's not the one that actually is good for them, it doesn't work in their body how I was expecting it, then I usually have secondary and like tertiary herbs that I have written down that would be like, ones to try in its stead, and then we'll replace the first herb with the second, and then vice versa. That doesn't work as well. So that's how I do mine. We will go over my system, and then we will go over other systems, and that will hopefully help you figure out what system you want to do. So, for example, if one herb can be both a digestive system herb and a respiratory system herb, but it has more of an affinity to the digestive system, we will be putting it under the digestive system in the Materia Medica that we will be going over. This is how I've planned to go through and teach it, because it's easier to keep on track if we're studying one system at a time. In my estimation, again, when you're organizing your Materia Medica, you are welcome to put them in an order that makes sense to you. So don't feel like this is the only way to do it or it's wrong. There is no wrong way to have your Materia Medica. So the Materia Medica is a vast study of herbs. We can get overwhelmed very quickly while studying it. So we are going to take as much time as needed to get through this module to ensure that you feel comfortable moving forward. This means that this module may take us several months to get through. It may take us 6 months. It may take us less. It just depends. And I just want you to feel comfortable moving forward when you've reached a level that you feel you can. So we are going to go slow, but we can always speed up if we need to. So many herbalists have hundreds of herbs in their apothecaries. And as such, knowing as many as possible before starting your own apothecary can really help start you off on the right foot. So this is why we are going to learn about a fuck ton of herbs. And so that's why it can get overwhelming. And so we're going to take it, like I said, slow to make sure that you're comprehending it well, you're understanding the material, that you feel comfortable with it before we move on to, more information. Especially because there will be a lot of A and P stuff in this. And so if you don't come from a background of having studied that already or know that stuff, that can get a little bit overwhelming all by itself. So we're going to go make sure that you understand all of that before we move forward. And due to the fact that if I go over like the literal like hundreds of thousands of herbs that are on this planet that we live on, that we would take years to go through it. We would be completely overwhelming you. And so, as such, I have narrowed each body system down to just like a handful of herbs. Usually, I do no more than 10 for each body system. And that alone is going to probably give you 100 herbs to have studied and learned about before you get out. And that's just the ones that I feel are kind of pertinent. And of course, there's always more that you can go off and study on your own as well. So this will give you a good foundation to start. And then obviously you can expand and move forward as you start your own practice. And, certain herbs will call to you over others. And you will also find that you may end up leaning one way over another in your practice. Like I started off being a very general kind of clinical herbalist, right? This meant that basically anybody who had any sort of ailment, illness, disease, I saw and I helped them. Over the years, I discovered that I really didn't like being what would be basically like a primary care physician, right, of the herbalist world, where anybody and everybody came to me for whatever. It was just not my calling. It wasn't my thing, I found out. So I kind of pivoted and went more into like women's health. And then over the years, I started just picking up more like neurodiverse clients and doing a lot of work with like ADHD and like OCD and things like that to help out. And now I've kind of come full circle and have moved back into a lot of just more women's health issues in general, because your hormones really do affect pretty much everything in your body. And so, as such, if they're out of balance and out of whack, that affects everything else, including like ADHD, OCD, all that fun stuff. So, I'm kind of have been leaning more into the hormonal side again, and the other stuff is just kind of covered under that umbrella. So you don't have to pick one direction and ever stick with it. This is the beauty of herbalism, is that there's many different areas, many different things you can move into, study, change up. So don't ever feel like you're stuck if you get started off saying, I'm going to be a pediatric herbalist, and about like a year in, just to really discover that you really, really, really dislike working with children. You're not stuck there. You can easily change into something else. So that's why in this program, we go over pediatric herbalism, and we go over adult herbalism, and we go over all the different stuff, so you don't ever feel like you're just stuck in one place. You kind of get a good foundation of all of it, and you can expand from there. So we're going to give you a good foundation for how to look at the herbs, how to assess the herbs for their actions, how to use each herb safely, and then you can add to your Materia Medica over the years, knowing this knowledge and knowing how to assess and learn about a herb when you discover what may be a new one to you. So learning about herbs is a very personal experience. Each herb will communicate with you differently than it will with me. So I may take a herb, go out and find a herb in the wild where it's still, alive and well, and sit and commune with it and link into its vibrational patterns and discover that this herb is good for, you know, my hormonally imbalanced clients. So like say for dandelion example, dandelion, I may sit there and commune with dandelion and I get the sense that it's perfect to use for my hormonally imbalanced clients. But if you sit there and commune with it, it may give you the sense to use it with your liver patients. Neither one is incorrect. Neither one is right over the other one. What you learn from the herb is what you need to learn at that moment in time and what you need it for in your practice. So it'll show you and give you what you need in that moment of communication. So don't ever feel like if you are reading through someone else's Materia Medica, like you get some herbal books and you're reading it and they're going on and on about this specific herb is great for this specific thing and that's the only thing you can use it for, but you've been using that herb for something completely differently and it's been working well and your clients are getting results and they're getting better and you're using it for that reason and you're getting better. That don't take that as like, oh my God, I've been using this herb wrong. No, you're not. You're using that herb how it is wanting you to use it. So don't ever take someone else's Materia Medica as like absolute fact and like it's um the only way that that herb can be used. So, as mentioned, your personal experience with a herb may not match any textbook, but that does not mean that it is wrong. Herbs are very personal for each person using them. This is why it's important to have your Materia Medica able to be added to it, because over the years, you're going to have different experiences with these herbs, and you can add that to each herb. So you may have an experience today with the herb because that's what you need from that herb today, but like 6 years down the line, you may go back to that herb for that reason, and now it's not working that same way, and that's because that herb is needed for a different reason in your body now. And so it may change. And so you can add that experience then into your Materia Medica. And over the years, you'll collect enough information that when you go and see clients, you'll be able to look through not only what the actual herb is and how it works and who it is, but you'll be able to fall back on those experiences and determine which herb is better for a client over another. So having one place where you have all of this information compiled is very useful for studying down the road, passing on to another student, passing on to a family member. So it's just really nice having one place that you can keep all this stuff and you can refer to over and over again. In later modules, you will learn how to use these herbs in different preparations and how to do so safely. And this is something that you would add to your Materia Medica as well. I have a whole section that's labeled out for recipes and formulas and different things like that. Good to have on hand. I've written down that, okay, I've tried this formulation, I've put these 3 herbs together and we tried it and this is what happened. And I had a terrible experience with it personally, but when I sent it out to some clients to be like testers, they had this and this happen and they had a great experience. So it really is good to keep that in there. I also have a section that's just for pediatrics so that when I do see children or I help my own children, I have all that there in one section I can go to refresh my memory. I don't see children in my practice practice very often. So because of that, I get a little rusty sometimes, it feels, because if you don't keep up on a skill, you do tend to start falling behind on it, right? So since I don't use that super often, I use that section of my Materia Medica constantly to go look up things and just double check, where what I'm thinking and where I'm going with this to make sure that it's safe for children and all that fun stuff. So I do that often. I have another section that's just for all of the different ways to prepare the herbs and how to do so, all the steps. Like literally, I do it all the time. I could probably do it in my sleep. I could probably do it blindfolded, but I have that section in there, not necessarily for myself, but for anybody that I pass my Materia Medica onto. So it's always good to have that. Plus, it never hurts to write things down like that, because stuff happens and maybe it's a preparation you don't do very often and you'll be like, oh fuck, how was I supposed to do this again? So having that down, even if it's something random that you normally wouldn't even think to make, whatever, that might be the perfect solution for a client. And so it's nice to have that information to fall back on for yourself, just because you never know when you might need it. So then, therapeutic terminology. This is the different ways that you will see in books that are listed as to how that herb can work in the body, how it helps, the different things that it can do and affect. So these are typically medical terms, but a lot of them are just only really for like herbalists. Like you won't see anybody else outside of the herbalist realm like use one of these terms to describe how your herbal medicine is working in the body. So there is literally a handout that I sent to that you should have been able to print off to use and look over this and have a kind of a glossary to go to if you're reading through someone else's herbal book and they're telling you that it's like an anti-rheumatic and you're like, I have no idea what that means. You can whip out your handy dandy guide and find anti-rheumatic and discover that it is a herb that helps with rheumatism, which is basically like inflammation in the joints. So it's a good list for that. If you have any questions about it, we will definitely go over it, how to pronounce anything like that. It's just literally, it's like 4 or 5 pages long. I forget, but it's long, and I didn't feel like taking up all of our time in the module to go over every single one. So we can go over that outside of this module if you wish to discuss or understand any of those terms better. So in conclusion, a Materia Medica filled with your experience and others for each herb that you use regularly or you want to start using is an invaluable resource to have when you are a practicing herbalist. This is something you should not skimp on making, as it will be something you refer to for almost daily for the rest of your life. So put time, effort, and energy into it now, and you will be well rewarded in the future when you look back and you need something and you have it because you put in the time to put it in there now instead of waiting. So thank you for coming today. If we have any questions or anything to add, we will go over those now.
I have 2 questions. First question is, do I need to like remember and study and memorize all of the like lists and words that herbalists use? Or is it just something that I can refer to?
It's to refer to, it's more of like I said, like a glossary that you would have in the back of a book, right? That if you read a term you don't know, you can flip to the back of the book and look it up, or use a dictionary. But this is just basically what that is, to help you if you are reading through someone else's herbal book and you see a term you don't know, you just have a reference to go to right away and find it and determine it.
Sounds good. And also you mentioned natal chart. What is that?
A natal chart is sometimes you'll hear it called like a birth chart or your horoscope chart. It is literally the chart that you get someone's birth date, the time that they were born and the place that they were born. And when you put that into your software, it prints off exactly where all the planets were in the sky at the time of their birth and which signs that they were in. And this helps you to determine like potential illnesses that they might come down with, where potential issues in the body will show up, if they've come to you saying that they're having all kinds of hormonal issues, and you see that and with that comes lots of hot flashes. Let's say they're having lots of hot flashes, and you see that their Mars is seated into into Scorpio, and so is their moon, then you're going to be like, oh, well, this explains why they're having hormonal issues, because these two planets are very strongly related to heat and hormonal issues. So that can give you a good starting point on where to really look and how to navigate how to formulate for them and which herbs are best. So
Sounds good.
yeah, that's how I do my consultations. I get all the information, I do the consultation, and then after we hang up, I run the natal chart, and using the information I've obtained from the client now from our consultation and what the natal chart says, I'm able to put together like a really clear picture and then go from there on how to formulate. Since I learned how to do that and really kind of switched into using that module, my formulas have gotten like way better and way more accurate, and I've had a lot more success. So it's something I wholly advocate learning, and we will actually learn about that in later modules about how to do that and what medical astrology is. So
awesome. And then could we go over number 3 on the homework?
Yeah, let me
the contraindications.